stories. These are the stories that are incorporated in the award-winning anthology series of original horror stories, the Nosleep podcast. The Nosleep podcast started on Reddit named as Nosleep. The concept was to be a place where people from all around the world post or share original scary stories about their frightening experiences through an online platform, which is Reddit. The Nosleep podcast started their Reddit journey back in 2010, and a year has passed. The platform is growing at a rapid pace. One member suggested, "What if we will make a podcast where some of the top stories from Nosleep will be narrated in audiobook style?" The suggestion was favored by the team and their host and producer, David Cummings. The Nosleep podcast released their first episode back on June 13, 2011. The podcast has been well received from the very beginning. Through word-of-mouth advertising, the number of regular listeners has grown steadily. Reviewers on iTunes consistently rate 5 stars, and the podcast ranks quite high in arts category. Currently, the Nosleep podcast has 21 seasons and is still ongoing. I am currently on my second season now. Each season has a maximum of 21 episodes. I have observed that the episodes have different time frames. Some have 30 minutes, and the longest I think was an hour and 45 minutes. The episodes are hosted by David Cummings. He is utilizing his deep and cold voice on reading stories accompanied by audio effects and background music. The content of each episode has its exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, and the resolution. Since the podcast's theme is horror, I find content spine-chilling. Like, every hair in your body will start to tingle. In episode 1, the composition and delivery was really great because as I was listening to it, I could vividly imagine the scene that was going on. I could see myself in the story. It seems like I was the main character. That effect really terrifies me because I've never experienced that kind of feeling, not until I started listening to this podcast. At the beginning of every episode on the Nosleep podcast, you can hear a clock ticking, accompanied by scary background music which can steer emotions and can somehow activate your adrenaline rush. It makes you giddy, excited, and scared at the same time. They chose audio effects that can make you scared, which I found great. Ringing bells, creepy wind chimes, creaking floors, and banging on the door. There are times where the stories are flat, but it doesn't affect the story because of the audio effects and editing. It is well studied where to insert these audio effects so that the listeners can have a great time listening. Warning: it is intended for mature adults only, not the faint of heart. Join us at your own risk. According to his tagline, it is intended for mature adults only because they claim that the podcast is scary and not suited for children or teens. But since the podcast is really famous and it gained popularity due to its diverse content in the horror genre, dynamic and great quality audio effects, and spine-tingling stories, teenagers and young adults are also casual listeners of the podcast. The podcast has reached its intended audience and left them speechless, scared, amazed, and mixed emotions. Sadly, I can seem to find your social media platforms. As for me, I can say hands down, one of the best podcasts even though I am still on my second season. The Nosleep podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and iTunes, which are great streaming platforms when it comes to podcasts. They achieved a 4.8 rating across the mentioned platforms. They have a website, but I think they are using it for submission of horror stories, updates, and payments. There's no marketing like advertisements going on. I think they are also getting income from ads in Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Music. The Nosleep podcast excels with spine-chilling stories and high-quality audio effects that captivate and engage listeners, making it a standout in the podcast world. I can foresee this podcast on having their 30th session in the near future. Its ability to offer convenient, diverse, and on-demand content highlights the significant value of podcast for entertainment.
behind you, look. Behind you.